Alright, today is a Wriothesley video pre-Miss Coffee, and we're going to be focusing more on his, freeze teams, obviously, because that's what Miss Coffee will be helping with. But, I mean, we have to talk about how you really don't have much to be able to do here. There's some methods here. So what we could do is do this, right? This is okay. The issue is Fiorina here is going to apply so much, hydro, it's going to get rid of the aura before Kazu was able to do anything, right? So, then you go ahead and you're like, okay, Shenhe. Shenhe is the next character that we'll use, and we'll just have our team, I guess, work like this. So, this team, pretty sick, Miss Coffee will probably replace Shieldin, right? The only issue that I see with this is that there's not like a character to specifically replace Shieldin, right? Like, if we have Miss Coffee, she's gonna be, res shredding probably more than Shieldin right now. But other than that, she's not doing anything, right? We'll see what her constellation and weapon look like. Maybe their support, like, Shieldin here gets an extra 25% damage bonus. But, we'll see when that happens. But if we're talking about a C0, R0, Miss Coffee, an extra bit of res isn't going to be what makes the difference. What will be the difference maker is, being able to use Fiorina at the very end. That's one difference maker. And then also, being able to just, do a lot of off-field damage, which is plausible, right? So, yeah, what we're going to see here is that when we have Miss Coffee, Fiorina's damage should go up. Wriothesley's damage should stay about the same. I think I just did the burst version. I probably shouldn't have done that. Yeah, you can see here. It's not fantastic. It's not even, Fiorina's doing 20,000. I'm just going to flat out tell you guys, I'm not going to show melt in this, video because I want to kind of keep it, sort of a little bit short. People definitely don't like me just yapping the entire video, right? So let's go ahead and keep this video kind of short. And, Wriothesley can do like 300,000 per charge on a melt team, on a proper melt team. And then Mavuika can do a 1.2 million damage burst. So it's tough to sit here and say, wow, freeze Wriothesley, Miss Coffee is going to have to be doing a lot of damage. Now, that does change depending on if you have C1 Wriothesley or not, but I always consider Wriothesley at C1 because that's the level I judge characters at. I would consider Shieldin with her weapon and stuff. Yeah, you get the idea, right? So, let's go ahead. Fiorina has her C1 on this team, by the way, because I haven't mentioned that yet. Let's go ahead and properly do this because that is the normal and charge attack damage bonus, I believe. And, yeah, we can see 50,000, 147,000. Wow, that was legitimately, I think, just the 15% damage bonus. Well, no. We do also have Fiorina who's healing, right? Or not Fiorina, Shieldin. And, I mean, hey, look at the Capybara's health. I don't know if he ever took true damage, the physical white damage number. Maybe you guys can rewind the video and see, or maybe I'll put it in text, I don't know. Whichever one I feel like doing. Do I feel like being lazy and making you hunt for the answer? Maybe. But, Wriothesley, he definitely can work, as that sort of really strong, helper. Now, my Wriothesley does have 128 elemental mastery. That is for, non-freeze, obviously, because freeze doesn't benefit at all from elemental mastery. So, it certainly is, I don't have, like, the best, freeze build, but I definitely don't have a bad Wriothesley freeze build. I don't, especially considering I'm C3 R1. There's no way I have a bad freeze Wriothesley build. And, it's nice to have Shenhe here, but I really, I can't get over that she's not, comparatively to other characters. Like, let's go ahead and look at Mavuika's team, right? Look at the massive amount of support that this entire team is giving you. Look at this. Shieldin, massive support. Bennett, massive support. Seatlolly, massive support. You can come here at a Wriothesley team and be like, okay, Shenhe, okay. Fiorina, massive support. Shieldin, massive support. Shenhe is no longer, like, a character who has kept up with the times, kept up with all the damage bonuses and stuff. She is good, but it really, she has energy issues. She has all these sort of, things that kind of hold her back and really don't make me want to use the character when she's available, honestly. It really is a situation like that. I really should have had more of this. And let's go ahead and do this. Oh, okay, well, I mean, I guess we can get quite the bit of this. Sure. Yeah. Sure. Well, 69,000. Okay, maybe we don't have a lot of buffs up. Okay. I wanted to do the elemental burst damage there. Okay, so I want to use Wriothesley's burst here. So the best way for us to do this, I think, would be, let's pop this, right? Let's pop this, and then we'll have this, and yes, and we should see a pretty nasty burst damage just because of the way that this works. 70,000 on all of that. That is 350,000 just from his burst damage. That's not bad. It really isn't. Considering Wriothesley is a normal attacking character, his C2 really makes his burst quite viable comparatively to what it normally is. Because let's look at the C2. 40% extra stacks, and the stacks up 5 times. That's 200% extra damage, right? So that is why that is so good, right? And that was a pretty giga charged version because I used Shenhe's, E skill, which was just press version, which buffs the damage of the burst and stuff, elemental skill and burst, which normally you would not do that. So yeah, it certainly isn't impossible, and I do think that Shenhe could make a comeback if we're being entirely honest. Because Shenhe, while I think her buffs are not as good, I think overall the team will just be better with Shenhe on it because Miss Coffee benefits from having Hydro and Cryo characters. So Shenhe isn't really giving that many buffs to Wriothesley. However, she is actually, still giving buffs through, completing Miss Coffee's passive. So we'll see how that goes. I have C2 shielded in for my Wriothesley, which is giving him 60% crit damage. And considering how low his damage numbers were on this team comparatively to Mavuika's team, it's just like I don't think it even holds a competition. I just don't see how this team is going to end up being better, especially at C1, because at C1 is really where the Melt team kind of kicks off and is like, oh, his charge attack does how much damage now? Which is a big part of, why, you use Wriothesley. But you don't just only get melts on the charge attack. You get it on a couple of his other hits, which I have had do over 100,000 damage from my Wriothesley. And the base damage punches, like the couple, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hits here, they don't do a lot of damage. Like this one does a lot of damage. But other than that, these weren't doing a lot of damage on, the Freeze team. Not enough more damage comparable to, Mavuika's team. It just... because we have the buffs from shielding on the Mavuika team, so all you're doing is taking Fiorina off the team, putting Bennett or something on the team, and then having Mavuika on the team. I don't see how that is like even close. Like, you're gonna do so much more damage on that team. Miss Coffee has to be doing quite literally well, maybe not over 1 million. No, she has to be doing over 1 million, but maybe not like, millions, because, C2 Mavuika is a part of why I, use my melt, right? A lot. And if I do choose to melt with my Mavuika, she does 1.2 million damage, right? That's C2. But if I chose not to, or if I chose to, melt with my Mavuika at like C0, she's doing like 900,000 damage or something, right? It's not like, oh, wow, I use my C2 Mavuika, it's so much bigger of a damage increase. No, it's still 900,000 damage that you just add if you melt with your Mavuika. It really is quite insane, and I just feel like, you're going to have to compete with that. It's going to be tough to actually do. It is. So we'll see how Miss Coffee's damage is looking. I'm kind of, I'm half like I do want it to be freeze, but I do also really like melt a lot better for Wriothesley, just because I like having him do more damage, be like, oh, he's doing 300,000 damage, whereas this team, it wasn't really like that. But then again, this team doesn't really like do a lot of damage anyways, so it's a little weird, right? So that's gonna be all I really have to say for this video. I really feel like I don't know, because I can, if I get, freeze Wriothesley, oh my god, it's better than his melt counterpart, then I can use it in Abyss along with my Mavuika, which is a really, like, to me, I like that, right? That's a cool idea to me. However, is it going to be better for Wriothesley? You know, like, is it going to make him do more damage, or is it going to be Miss Coffee just doing all the damage for him, right? What, or Fiorina, Coffee and Fiorina, because those two combined will be doing a lot of off-field damage, I'm assuming. And then, you know, Shenhe will be there. I think if Shenhe gets replaced on this team, it'd be a really strong team. If we get, like, you know, a cryo crit damage support. Like, let's say we do genuinely, because we have these sort of supports, right? Let's say, you know, Shieldon, this, you know, constellation here, crit damage, right? And they give us Miss Coffee and everything, you know, she has her stuff, right? And, you know, they give us Mika, but for cryo. You know, Goro, but for cryo. Kujosara, but for cryo. Where their C6 is like, oh, hey, here's some extra crit damage. Like, you could be speaking, you know, very strong words into Wriothesley. Like, this man could be doing a lot, right? Assuming that they do more, right? It would probably have to be, man, I don't know what it would have to be, because Miss Coffee's going to be shredding everything, right? She's going to be shredding everything. Hydro and cryo at, like, you know, I don't know, 50%. We'll just say that. And she'll be doing a lot of off-field damage. Then we also have Fiorina, who's giving you 100% damage bonus almost. So what are we going to get with, you know, Wriothesley with a cryo? Like, what do we need? Because honestly, I don't know, because we have so many stats. I guess an attack buffer. It would have to be an attack buffer, I think. We'll see if that ever happens, but, you know, we'll see. So thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.